All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. If you haven't joined us before on this podcast, I'm Tash. I'm VP of Customer Growth at Hook. And today I'm interviewing Customer Ops Person of the Year winner from the US Customer Growth Awards, Steven Ramirez. Steven, massive congrats. We missed you on the night. We couldn't dance and celebrate, but how did it feel to win?
Thank you so much. I was bummed I couldn't be there. I was in Japan with my daughter, but yeah, it felt great. I've never won a like true professional award outside of, intra-company awards. And so it's great to get the recognition. I think the best part about it was actually getting to know other peers and actually networking through just the nomination process. So it was a really great experience to be able to start to form a network just from the award itself. So I really
Love
appreciate the
that.
recognition.
Nice. I love that. Well, we're thrilled for you. And the aim of the game today is we just want to learn a little bit more about you and your experience and what went into the awards so that other people can learn from you and your journey. Perhaps start with telling us a little bit about your role right now. What is it you do? What does that entail?
Yeah, so my role at Airtable, I manage strategic programs for our post-sales organization, although a lot of them actually transcend across all of go-to-market. I would say my primary remit is to essentially reduce churn and contraction across the organization, right? So we have goals to increase MDR, reduce our churn and contraction. As a business, we want to, prepare for some sort of exit event, whether that's an IPO or an acquisition. So we also want to make sure that our house is in order as it relates to forecasting and all of those different, core metrics that help us, plan financially. So that's my core remit. I also joke I'm a little bit of a Swiss Army knife where wherever we need sort of program management and wherever we need sort of direct field expertise to drive specific strategies or changes we want to make across the org, I typically get involved. And I would say the last part of my job is to look at our technology, both how we can leverage our own technology at Airtable. As many folks probably know, Airtable is a big platform that you can do a lot with. So how do we use our own technology to propel our go-to-market motion forward? But also, how do we take advantage of new technologies, especially with AI, to just make the go-to-market teams more efficient. So that's another area of my role as well.
Nice. Okay, I'm definitely going to ask you about that before we wrap up. Maybe bring this to life for us a little bit more. So, strategic programs. Give us an example of a program that you might have run for the go-to-market teams.
Yeah, so sort of my flagship program and the big focus is around risk rallies. So the idea here is actually we never, well, number one, we never had a common vocabulary or lexicon to talk about risk. We didn't have standard reasons for risk and standard reasons as to why our customers churn. So part of the job was just standardizing that and us all getting on the same language about why do customers churn so that we can sort of build off of that. The second component of it was actually, standing up a platform within Airtable so that every single go-to-market team can sort of contribute to that risk mitigation plan. We can kind of track how the metrics are trending, whether, in a positive direction, a negative direction. And then it's the actual kind of operational rigor of standing up these live conversations across all of our different regions, and then also having an executive forum where we're sort of escalating kind of the top, accounts that are at risk and driving mitigation strategy at that level. So yeah, that's an example of a program that I oversee.
Amazing. And I love that as an example because so many organizations create risk programs that just become stale, that nobody is spending time on, nobody is looking at, and of course, then it isn't impacting revenue. So love that you use that as an example. I also love that you said it was a place that the whole go-to-market team could contribute towards the risk mitigation plan. Again, like another thing where so many businesses feel like, well, that's just all CS and actually it's not for anybody else to do. But I think with things like renewals with risk, it's a team sport, right? Like everybody needs to get involved to help.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think what's been really great to see at Airtable is how much the program has actually infused itself into the culture of our company. A bit of a silly anecdote. Last week, I heard a manager come to me and say, "Yeah, so and so is so and so got our whole pod together to come up with a strategy. They were really concerned, and they said, "Oh, I really don't want to have to like get into the risk rally program." And so there's almost this like, uh, you know, part of our culture has now been embedded that everyone wants to get ahead of risk and be proactive with
Yeah,
risk. And getting into the groove of that conversation, to your point, making it a team sport, I think has contributed to that. And using the same language. So now everyone uses like, oh, our customer, we have lack of engagement, or we have lack of exec sponsorship, or we have product limitations. Like they use these very standard terms, and everyone knows exactly what they're talking about. And more importantly, everyone knows exactly what playbook then to attach to that. Oh, it's an accelerator day, or oh, it's an exec matching play. So there's this standardization that's now kind of embedded into the Airtable culture, which I found to be really just rewarding to see that kind of
really
take over
cool.
the entire company.
And how lucky the CS team and the whole go-to-market team are to have you and your role supporting them. Not every organization has that level of resource and has that level of support. So that's amazing in itself. Out of interest, do you sit under the like CS or the go-to-market function, or do you sit more under ops? Like where are you most aligned to?
Yeah, I actually sit within revenue operations. So yeah, within kind of our broader go-to-market, you've got what we call customer experience. There's sales, there's post sales, and then there's revenue operations. We all kind of ladder up to customer experience. So I obviously have a very like dotted matrix, engagement and
Yeah,
with our chief customer officer, Kate, with a lot of the leaders within CS, but also a lot of the leadership within sales as well, and our CRO, but officially sit under revenue and operations.
amazing. And how do you make sure that you're a great partner to the other go-to-market teams? What does that partnership look like for you?
Yeah, and I guess I'll say I had a bit of an unfair advantage, and that was because I was an actual CSM myself. So I was on the
Right.
field. And I think, as it relates to partnership and then getting on the other side, actually understanding what the day-to-day looks like for a sales rep, for a CSM, is so critical, right? Because you're not living in like strategy and operation hypothetical land. Everything that you're doing is very much grounded in the reality of what they're facing, in the field, of grounded in the reality of like the complexities of the product. Because again, Airtable is a really broad platform that has a lot of, complexities attached. I think that's really the core of my partnership with the business is that everything that I do is always grounded in like the reality and the truth of what they're seeing. And they see that, they recognize that, and there's just this inherent trust where if I'm going to them with an ask, it's I've already exhausted every other option to
Yeah.
arrive at that thing myself. And they trust that, right? And I think that's super critical. Obviously, not everyone gets the luxury to support the product directly and then transition into a strategy and ops role. But I think there's different ways for you to kind of gain that experience, even if you aren't in that role yourself.
Yeah, nice. What was it that drove you to move from CS into more of the strategy and the upside?
Yeah, I think it was two primary things. So, first off, I started my career as a management consultant. So I worked at Deloitte for 7 years under their digital transformation practice. And so I've always been a consultant and a strategy and ops person sort of at heart and at my core. And when I transitioned to SaaS, again, I went directly into the field. I'm at a point in my career now where I want to be able to influence, the direction of kind of the entire uh, team versus I was having great success in my own world. And what I wanted to do was, hey, how do I scale these things that I'm doing or the motions that make me really successful as a customer success manager? And there's kind of two paths there, right? Either, become a manager or go and support kind of strategy and ops for the function. It was more of a timing thing. Airtable, at the time that I made the transition, we had gone through a few rounds of layoffs. Customer success was always a bit is a bit, shaky. Where in terms of like how much investment are people doing? How is that role going to evolve? And so we had a business need, right, which was to drive NDR up. And I had a strong case on how I can do it, and that's kind of how I made the transition.
I love it. I interviewed a lady named Valerie who won the Ops Person of the Year at the London Awards. And it was really only when I spoke to her that I realized how many parallels there are between the role of a CSM and the role of an ops person supporting go to market. And she described her role as it was something like, well, I do the same job, I just have a different customer. And
Yeah,
so it's really
exactly.
interesting to hear you say the same thing. And I think it'll be a really nice eye opener for a lot of CSMs listening that, hey, like there are other paths out there, and actually ops is a really, really good one. So
Mm,
thanks for sharing about your journey. Can
absolutely.
I ask you something about your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, of course.
You have on your LinkedIn profile business technologist who puts humans first. Tell
Mhm.
us a bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, that one took me a while, and it was pre-chat GPT. So, uh, I didn't have
Was
some.
it?
It wasn't AI coming up with a witty tagline. That was all me. Um, I think again, I talked about sort of how I started my career, which was in digital transformation and working as a management consultant. One of the things that I learned through that experience is that it doesn't matter what technology you're implementing. It doesn't matter what your audience is or what persona you are implementing it to. At the end of the day, what matters the most is that you're able to manage change effectively within the organization, within the customer you're serving. Um, and it all goes back to like very foundational principles of we are adults in a workplace setting. And when we are asked to do something differently, whether that be a new process, whether that be a new system, we need to understand what's in it for us, right? The WIFM. That is so
Yes.
critical because that's what incentivizes us versus when we're children, right? Our brains are wired very differently to learn and adapt. As adults, the only way that we are able to learn and adapt is if we understand how that thing that we're learning or adapting to is going to help us in every day, how we can adapt it and use it to our advantage to then get ahead, earn more pay, progress in our careers,
Right.
support our families. And so I just kind of came to this realization that no matter what I do, no matter what great of a system it is, if I don't put the human experience first and like bringing the human along that change journey first, it's all going to fail. And I think what's really interesting is that that's always been sort of a very like clear statistic out in the digital transformation space. And now with, transition to AI and a lot of what we're seeing with AI, I think there was a recent MIT study that cited something like 95% of transformation projects have failed. A lot of them again cite the idea of like, it's not about the technology, it's about the adoption, the process of embedding that technology into people's
Yeah.
day. So that's where it comes from. It's like, doesn't matter who I'm serving, doesn't matter what company I work for. If I don't put that human experience first, my efforts are going to go to waste.
I love that. I think it's such an important lesson, and you've articulated it really well. So many CSMs, so many businesses put CSMs as your job is to be a product expert because they put all of the reliance on the technology. And so many CSMs don't realize that they're in the business of change management. And so that I love that you've just articulated that. I also haven't heard anyone reference WIFM in some time. So I appreciate that. Thank you. But yeah, very good lesson for the folks listening for sure. You talked a little bit about AI. You talked about tools and tech earlier on as being part of your role. Maybe talk us through what's your favorite piece of tech? What's your favorite tool that you're leveraging or you're helping roll out right now? And then what's your favorite use of AI, either for you personally or for the CS teams that you support?
Yeah. Well, I would be remiss to obviously not say Airtable.
Ah,
Mhm. I think as a company, we have a very kind of builder like mentality. And for the folks that aren't or are familiar with Airtable, the best way I describe Airtable is if someone kind of took a box of Legos and just kind of poured it on your desk. Um, and you had in front of you the ability to create anything really you can imagine. I think even with AI, that now even becomes more obvious. And so, you know, our remit is first, let's try to do it with Airtable. And let's try to push our own products and our own boundaries. It's great for me because within Airtable, I'm able to customize and integrate with all these different tools within our go-to-market teams. And each team can have their own flexibility, right? Like sales can do their own thing in their own way, CS can do their own thing in their own way, RMs can do their own thing in their own way, and then we can kind of bring it all together. So Airtable is definitely something I use, day to day. How we run our risk calls and program is done in Airtable. Our account planning within sales is done in Airtable. Vendor procurement is done in Airtable. So that's definitely a tool in my tool stack. The other tool that I think our org has been leveraging a lot, and obviously we're thinking about scale, and we're always thinking about automation, is Matik,
Mm,
which is a presentation automation kind of software. As you can imagine, right, things like executive business reviews and monthly business reviews, those are really time-consuming tasks, and things that take our reps a lot of time to kind of put together. And so we've done a great job, and it actually was very much incubated in our scaled segment, uh, where we want to be able to leverage the power of that tool to pull all the data that's available from our data warehouse and auto create these decks in a matter of minutes. So that the reps are spending less time on creating decks and more time on like, okay, what are the insights that I can then share with my customer from this data that I'm presenting to them? I would say the other really cool tool that we've used quite a bit is Common Room. Common Room is like a person enrichment tool. And I'll give you a really tactical example of how we're using it. So within the risk program, right, we track our executive buyer and we track our champions. And because again, Airtable is such a horizontal platform, you can have multiple exec buyers. You can have an exec buyer in marketing, you can have an exec buyer, in IT, and then you can have a ton of champions. Keeping track of whether those folks are still in the organization or not sometimes is a task in of itself. Actually, Common Room kind of allows you to like unify the person, so the person in the product with the person externally. So like their LinkedIn profile or other external kind of user information,
yeah, nice.
and it junctions it together. And so we actually will like in our Airtable base for our risk program, we'll get an alert that says, hey, like the champion from this company has left and they are now at this company. And that kind of creates its own workflow where now, number one, the account team is going to then identify a new champion,
Yep.
but the other rep now has, a warm lead to then go and pursue because they were an Airtable champion before. Uh,
Yeah, really nice.
yeah, so that's on the tooling side. I would say, on the AI side, it's hard to say right now, like one particular tool that I'm using. I think I'm using all of the above, right? Claude, ChatGPT, AI functionality within Airtable. I think the biggest kind of piece of advice that I give to, strategy and ops folks is to like actually play with it. Like get in there, try it out for your personal reasons, try it out for professional reasons, test the limitations. I think the biggest challenge with me and embedding an AI within our organization is having it like provide like the same consistent outputs. And it's a lot of like tinkering with the prompt, but it's also selecting the right model for the right problem that it's solving for. So for
Right.
example, I want AI to go ahead and pull job postings that I think are relevant to Airtable, and extract all those job postings from a particular company and then provide that to the account team so that they know what the company is investing in. They can actually extract the tech platforms they're using it because job descriptions often include that. There's certain models that are better at doing that than others. And so it's this game of like tinkering and playing around with all these different levers. And it does take time. It does take
Yeah.
time, it takes experimentation. But I think if you put in some of that time, you'll start to see, some great outputs.
And it's with the experimentation that you understand or you start to get a grasp of like truly what's possible. It's hard to get all those new ideas without going and playing around with it, right? But yeah, great overview, great insights, and great advice. I will give an extra shout out to the folks over at Matic. I was a customer in my role before this one, and their tech is awesome, and they're like a really lovely bunch of people to work with as well. So extra shout out to those guys. Stephen, you've been an absolute joy. Tons of golden nuggets, lots of good advice for people. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Congratulations again on winning the award, and we're all waiting to see what comes next. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.